Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So this is St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica. Very important text because of the topics that it deals with. We are in the section about the existence of God. Part 1, question 2, article 3, which is whether God exists. So, let's start with objection 1. It seems that God does not exist because if one of the two contraries be infinite, the other would be altogether destroyed. But the word God means that he is infinite goodness. If, therefore, God existed, there would be no evil discoverable. But there is evil in the world, therefore God does not exist. So this is a very interesting example because many contend that due to the fact that there is lots of malice in the world, that therefore would negate the existence of an involved being handling human affairs. So let's see how he deals with this objection. As Augustine says, since God is the highest good, he would not allow any evil to exist in his works, unless his omnipotence and goodness were such as to bring good even out of evil. This is part of the infinite goodness of God, that he should allow evil to exist and out of it produce good. So what was interesting about that is you really begin to see that a bad situation can happen, evil can happen, but good can still come out of that situation. So a crime happens to somebody that's quite evil. Maybe they warn someone else and the crime gets prevented for someone else. So there's always these opportunities where if a bad deed happens, something good can come from it if one speculates, observes, shares information. Someone tells a sad story or a bad thing that happened, they were gypped out of some contract, just something really bad. A good situation can come from that besides the person learning their lesson. It can also help someone and benefit somebody. And if it benefits somebody, therefore something good came out of that evil. So that is a very unique rebuttal to such an assertion. So objection 2, further, it is superfluous to suppose that what can be accounted for by a few principles has been produced by many, but it seems that everything we see in the world can be accounted for by other principles, supposing God did not exist. So notice this, accounted for by other principles. So this is almost like someone saying, well, these other principles exist, therefore we don't need to speculate on God. So let's see further what he says. For all natural things can be reduced to one principle, which is nature. So notice how there's this argument of because we can identify one founding principle, which is nature, we need not go farther. It would appear to me to say, something like nature is the final end-all be-all and that there's nothing above nature or beyond it seems a bit, unclimactic, very lazy in contemplation, I'd argue. And all voluntary things can be reduced to one principle, which is human reason or will. So voluntary things being reduced to the will or human reason. Therefore, there is no need to suppose God's existence. So here, the objection that they're posing to Aquinas is, well, we have these principles of nature and principles of human reason and will, and so because we can identify these and reduce it to such a principle, we need not even say that God exists. So let's see how he responds. Since nature works for a determined end under the direction of higher agent, so notice this, under the direction of a higher agent, whatever is done by nature must needs be backed to God. So traced back to God. So whatever done to nature, God is the prime mover, you follow? As to its first cause. So also, whatever is done voluntarily must also be traced back to some higher cause other than human reason or will. So here, again, it all goes back to God. Quite astute. Since these can change and fail. Yes, human will and human reason can change, but God does not. For all things that are changeable and capable of defect must be traced back to an immovable and self-necessary first principle. Notice this term, immovable and self-necessary, as was shown in the body of the article. So here are some just very potent examples. And then further, we'll go into one of the first parts, and then in another video we'll do the second, third, and 4 or 5 ways that he answers how the existence of God can be proved. So the first way is that there is the motion aspect. So let's see what he says. The first and more manifest way is the argument from motion. It is certain and evident to our senses that in the world some things are in motion. This is quite true. Everything seems to be moving, doesn't it? Even the bugs, everything. It's going somewhere, doing something. Now, whatever is in motion is put in motion by another. For nothing can be in motion except it is in potentiality to that towards which it is in motion. So notice the angle of potential that he mentions. Whereas a thing moves inasmuch as it is in act. For motion is nothing else than the reduction of something from potentiality to actuality. So notice this. It was potential, now it's actual, due to the being put into motion by its first cause. But nothing can be reduced from potentiality to actuality, except by something in a state of actuality. You see that? So if you're going to put something into a different state, moving from the potential to the actual, the one who moves it must be already actual and not potential. Because to be actual is to put something into motion, because now you've done the act and it's no longer the potential, you see? Thus, that which is actually hot as fire makes wood which is potentially hot to be actually hot, and therefore by moves and changes it. You could definitely follow the logic. Now, it is not possible that the same thing should be at once in actuality and potentiality in the same respect. So you can't be both potential and actual in the terms of movement, he's arguing, right? But only in different respects, exactly. So you have a potential to go farther in your motion, but you are in motion, you're not potentially in motion, you see? For what is actually hot cannot simultaneously be potentially hot, but it is simultaneously potentially cold. Exactly. So it's hot right now, it's not potentially hot, it is hot, and it could potentially get cold, you see? It is therefore impossible that in the same respect and in the same way a thing should be both mover and moved, i.e. that it should move itself. Very interesting. So something sets it into motion. Very powerful. Therefore, whatever is in motion must be put in motion by another. If that by which it is put in motion be itself put in motion, then this also must needs be put in motion by another. You can definitely see how this would work. Instead of just randomness, but there's still something that's initiating the movement. And he contends it's God. And that by another again. But this cannot go on to infinity, because then there would be no first mover. And consequently, no other mover. Seeing that subsequent movers move only inasmuch as they are put in motion by the first mover. So, everything that will move, it's only going to go that far inasmuch as what the first mover has done in terms of putting it into motion. Very powerful. As the staff moves only because it is put in motion by the hand, therefore it is necessary to arrive at the first mover, put in motion by no other, and this everyone understands to be God. Powerful and effective. So that is the first cause Aquinas lays out on the existence of God. So the first movement, motion. So something always has to put something else into motion. Nothing can put itself into motion. And then he got into actuality versus potentiality and how those affect motion and even the different respects and such, but you cannot simultaneously be potential and actual in terms of motion, and that will be changed by what set it into motion. So God as the first mover. This is very powerful argument. I hope you enjoyed, and the next video we'll do the second way and so on and so forth.